It's 7:30 in the evening across India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global, bringing you day's big stories from across India and the world. My colleague Kate Fisher is joining me from Washington, D.C. Kate, good to see you.
Yes, good morning, Shubhendu. Good to see you. It's 9 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. and 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Well, here in America, in the state of Iowa, Americans there will be the first to have their say in the nominating contest for the next US president, with Donald Trump still leading the Republican contest. And in Latin America, Guatemala has a new president. Despite anti-corruption crusader Bernardo Arevalo, who's taken office after his inauguration was delayed for hours by a last-ditch attempt by opponents to weaken his authority. Back to you now for the rest of the news.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, discusses a host of issues including positive developments in bilateral ties and Russia's presidency of the BRICS. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, on a visit to Iran, begins engagements with talks on Chabahar Port and International North-South Transport Corridor. Americans set to vote in the Iowa caucuses to determine Republican presidential nominee. Former President Donald Trump widely expected to cement his frontrunner status. And national security advisors of several countries meet in Davos to discuss peace formula for Ukraine. Kremlin says nothing can be achieved without Russia's participation. Indian Prime Minister and Russian President held conversation on Monday. The two leaders reviewed progress on a number of issues of bilateral cooperation. In follow-up to recent high-level exchanges between the two countries, they positively assessed the developments in bilateral relations and agreed to develop a roadmap for future initiatives to further strengthen India-Russia special and privileged strategic partnership. They also exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. Prime Minister Modi conveyed his best wishes for Russia's presidency of the BRICS in 2024 and assured of India's full support. The two leaders agreed to remain in touch. The 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum begins today in Davos. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Switzerland to take part in the event. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, French President Emmanuel Macron, and key West Asian leaders will also be there to attend the 54th annual gathering. Putting an end to the ongoing conflicts in West Asia and Ukraine remains top on the agenda. A challenging global economic picture with shifting interest rate policies and rising debt will also confront central bankers, financiers, and business leaders who are attending this meeting. National security advisors of several countries are meeting in Davos to discuss peace formula for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Kremlin on Monday said talks in Davos on Ukraine's peace proposals would achieve nothing as Russia was not participating in the discussions. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the process cannot be aimed at achieving any specific results since we are not participating. Meanwhile, Ukraine says it will not rest until every Russian soldier is ejected from its territory, and Ukrainian President Zelensky has decreed that any talks with Russia are illegal. DD India's Megumi Lim reports.
the conflict in the Middle East continues. So this is another opportunity for Zelensky to keep the spotlight on Ukraine and convince world leaders and Ukraine's international partners that Ukraine deserves continued backing from its partners and continued funding and support as the fighting is continuing on along the front lines in the south and in the east, although it has largely turned positional and static. This forum comes against the backdrop of, as we understand, continued divisions in the United States over continued funding for Ukraine, and also as the EU has failed to push through its 50 billion euros of funding that it was planning to send to Ukraine over a 4-year period after it failed to get a unanimous vote during the last EU summit. And Ukraine is running out of ammunition and even interceptor missiles. The Pentagon recently said that it will struggle to continue providing interceptor missiles for Ukraine's air defense systems. And we have noticed here that the interception rate has gone down in recent days as Russia continues to launch air attacks against Ukraine. And we have also seen the Institute of the Study of War release a report that Russia is preparing for a renewed offensive, waiting for the grounds to freeze over in the south and in the east, even as Ukraine continues to face shortages of ammunition. So it is of utmost importance for Zelensky to continue to try and shore up more support from its international partners.
And Americans are set to vote in the Iowa caucuses to determine Republican presidential nominee. Former President Donald Trump has a clear edge. My colleague Kate Fisher is in Washington, D.C., gets us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Kate, over to you.
Shubhendu, thank you. Americans, as you say, are all set to vote for the first time in the 2024 presidential election on Monday in the Iowa caucuses, which will help to determine the Republican presidential nominee, with former President Donald Trump widely expected to cement his frontrunner status. Only Republicans will vote on Monday, as Democrats have changed their primary calendar, moving their first votes to different states. And with 48% of support, Mr. Trump is far ahead of other Republican candidates, with former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley jumping to second place with 20%, while Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has slipped to third place with 16% of the support. Authorities in Mexico have rescued over 726 migrants in a warehouse and arrested 4 suspected smugglers. The migrants were transferred to an auditorium of the municipality to carry out the administrative migration process, while the minors will be channeled to the National System for the Integral Development of the Family. In Guatemala, Bernardo Arevalo has been sworn in as its new president on Monday, and Corina Herrera was sworn in as vice president. The ceremony, though, was delayed for hours without clarification or explanation, which led to protests. Demonstrators pushed through barricades and threatened to storm Guatemala's Congress. 65-year-old Arevalo won the August presidential runoff on the promise of restoring democracy and banishing deep-rooted corruption in the most populous country in Central America.
Y por último, estableceremos las bases.
We will establish the foundation for generational development through processes of dialogue that will allow us to build the necessary trust to harmonize the diverse interests and aspirations of our society as a whole on 4 issues that will allow for ample consensus on education, on health, on development, and the environment.
Well, Monday is day 101 of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Hamas has aired a video allegedly showing the Israeli hostages it's holding in Gaza. For its part, Israel's army released a video of its forces operating in Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip and uncovering mortars and other munitions.
As Israel marked 100 days since the October 7 attack, Hamas on Monday released a video showing 3 Israeli hostages that they are holding in Gaza. The 37-second video ended with an electronically generated caption, "Tomorrow will inform you of their fate." Thousands of Israelis continue to call for the immediate release of hostages. Despite pouring rain, families of hostages were joined by thousands in a 24-hour-long rally that ended on Sunday night in a Tel Aviv plaza.
This was crime against humanity, not crimes against Israel. It was committed against Israeli, American, German, French. It doesn't matter. They didn't stop and ask who you are and where you live. So yes, I want to say to the leaders of the world, this is your responsibility too, to make sure they're coming back home, all 136 people.
Meanwhile, on Sunday, Israeli army released a video which it says shows its forces operating in the southern Gaza Strip of Khan Yunis and uncovering mortars and other munitions. The video shows gun battles and explosions, as well as soldiers entering buildings through holes in the exterior walls of the building. Relatives and friends of German nationals kidnapped by Hamas militants marched through the center of Berlin to mark 100 days of their captivity.
I want to say that it's been 100 days today. And time, we don't have a lot of time at all. Time is running out. And I feel that we need to do something now.
Meanwhile, Israel launched strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon after a guided missile launched from the other side killed a woman and her son in a village in northern Israel. Earlier, the Israeli military said that they killed 4 heavily armed terrorists trying to enter from Lebanon.
In the UK, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will shortly address MPs for the first time since the UK joined US strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. While the opposition MPs have criticised the Prime Minister for authorising the strikes without prior consultation, ahead of the address, Sunak emphasised the country's aim to normalise international shipping operations.
Well, our aim is to de-escalate tensions in the region and actually restore stability back to the area. We faced an escalating series of attacks from the Houthis on commercial shipping, including an attack on Royal Navy warship. That's unacceptable. It's right that we took proportionate, targeted action against military targets to send a strong message that that behaviour is unacceptable.
The French island of La Réunion issued its highest weather emergency on Monday morning as Cyclone Bilal brought strong winds. Authorities urged citizens to stay inside and avoid unnecessary travel. The storm's expected to reach its peak today, with speeds hovering around 200 kilometres per hour. Cyclonic sea waves of up to 12 to 15 metres are also expected. A volcano erupted in southwestern Iceland on Sunday, engulfing buildings in flames. An early evacuation was carried out for the second time since November. Authorities have built barriers of earth and rock in recent weeks to try to prevent lava from reaching Grindavik, which is 40 kilometres to the capital Reykjavik. But the latest eruption has penetrated the town's defences.
We had this eruption started just before 8 o'clock this morning. It was on the area where we have been expecting it to come, but unfortunately it went a little bit more south than we had hoped for. So it went inside the barriers that we have already built, and then also about 3-4 hours later we had another opening just outside the town of Grindavik.
Taiwan's president-elect has told a visiting delegation of former senior US officials that he hopes that the United States will continue to support Taiwan. He said that his administration will continue to defend peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait.
I hope the United States can continue to support Taiwan and deepen cooperation between the United States and Taiwan for our mutual benefit, for the safety and prosperity of the region. We are thankful for the United States' long-term support of Taiwan. I believe our relationship will advance in a stable direction through our continuous hard work and become an important force to safeguard the peace and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific.
Well, Taiwan has broken its official diplomatic relations with the tiny Pacific island nation of Nauru. Taiwan's move came after Nauru said that it will sever diplomatic relations with Taiwan and instead recognize China.
In order to maintain our sovereignty and dignity, we have decided from this very day to end diplomatic relations with Nauru, halt bilateral plans for cooperation, withdraw the embassy and repatriate technical personnel, and will demand for Nauru to shut its embassy in Taiwan. Just as many democratic countries around the world congratulate Taiwan's victory in democracy by successfully holding an election, Beijing authorities decided to suppress Taiwan in this manner and launched an attack on international order and stability. This is revenge on the value of democracy and also a challenge against the global order. China has been deliberately trying to lure our diplomatic allies over the years.
Well, that's all from me here in a snowy Washington, D.C. Back now to you in New Delhi, Shubendu.
Thank you, Kate. Have a nice day. And we're heading for a short break. Still to come on DD India Global. North Korea tests a new solid-fuel hypersonic missile. Indian Army is celebrating 76th Army Day with grand parade in the city of Lucknow.
This is Dashrath Mahal or Dashrath Palace, which is thought to have served the home of Lord Rama in his younger days and also served as the capital of King Dashrath.
राम राज्य पूर्णतः 22 जनवरी को वापस आ रहा है हम लोगों में एकदम हर्ष उल्लास है जय श्री राम पूरी अयोध्या मानो दुल्हन की तरह सज गई है
राम राज्य के दर्शन करने सब राज आएगा ये पृथ्वी का ना राजा राम जी है
अयोध्या में राम जी का भव्य मंदिर दिव्य मंदिर बन रहा है ये हमारे स्वाभिमान का प्रतीक है
Iconic Ram Ki Pedi or the series of ghats on the bank of much revered river Saryu.
राम जी का राज्य था राम जी का राज्य है राम जी का राज्य रहेगा राम 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 राम
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. North Korea has tested a new solid-fuel hypersonic missile with intermediate range. It says that the launch was aimed at testing the reliability of new multi-stage high-thrust solid-fuel engines and an intermediate-range hypersonic maneuverability controlled warhead. DD India correspondent Andrew Wood gets us more from Hong Kong.
This is supposedly a test launch. It's clearly in violation of United Nations Security Council resolutions that prevent or forbid North Korea from developing such weapons and having its own space program. But we haven't heard condemnation from Russia or China. Now, those countries are both members of the UN Security Council, and so presumably you'd think would support or would criticize anybody who tries to break UN Security Council resolutions. But so far they seem quiet. Russia and Korea, North Korea, they've been allies going back to just after the Second World War. And of course it was Russia that gave, or the Soviet Union, Stalin, that gave North Korea the go-ahead to invade South Korea in 1950. And they've stayed quite close, but they've become a lot closer over the past year, especially in the past 6 months, as we saw President Putin go to Vladivostok in the far east of Russia, which is right next to the border with North Korea. And North Korean's leader, Kim Jong-un, went to talk to him. They met there for a summit. Since then, it appears that North Korean missiles have been used by Russia in Ukraine. And the talk is that North Korea is benefiting from technology about launching missiles and so on from Russia too.
India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar is on a two-day visit to Iran. Dr. Jaishankar began talks with Iran's Minister of Roads and Urban Development in Tehran on Monday. The ministers had a detailed and constructive discussion on establishment of long-term cooperation framework in relation to Chabahar port. Thoughts were also exchanged on the North-South International Transport Corridor. The Indian Army is celebrating 76th Army Day with a grand parade in India's capital, Uttar Pradesh capital of Lucknow. Indian Army Chief General Manoj Pandey inspected the parade at Parade Ground. Uttar Pradesh's capital hosts only Second Army Day outside of country's capital, New Delhi, to commemorate Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa becoming the first Indian Commander-in-Chief of independent India. The parade is witnessing 6 marching contingents, military band comprising 5 regimental brass bands and 3 pipe bands.
उत्तरी सीमाओं पर हमारी सेना किसी भी स्थिति से निपटने के लिए पूरी तरह तैयार और सक्षम है। उत्तरी सीमाओं पर अपनी क्षमता को विकास करने के लिए हमने कई ठोस कदम उठाए हैं। हाल ही में इमरजेंसी प्रोक्योरमेंट के प्रावधानों के जरिए हमने कई आधुनिक उपकरणों की आपूर्ति की है, जिसमें नीश टेक्नोलॉजी के लैस अस्त्र शस्त्र भी शामिल हैं। सीमा क्षेत्रों में क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को विकसित करने की दिशा में खास ध्यान दिया गया है और इसमें अच्छी प्रगति भी हुई है।
During the 76th Army Day Parade, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh stated that Indian Army is now furnished with contemporary weaponry and there has been an augmentation in the representation of women in the forces.
कई वर्षों से थल सेना दिवस मनाया जाता रहा है। इस परंपरा में हमने यह बदलाव किया कि माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के विजन से अब आर्मी डे दिल्ली से बाहर दूसरे शहरों में भी आयोजित किया जा रहा है। इसी प्रोग्रेस की श्रृंखला में देश यह भी देख रहा है कि किस प्रकार से हमारी सेना लगातार नए और आधुनिक हथियारों से सुसज्जित हो रही है। हमारी सेना ड्रोन्स, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस से संचालित वेपन से सुसज्जित है। हमारी सेना में नारी शक्ति का प्रतिनिधित्व बढ़ रहा है।
Elaborate arrangements have been made by Indian Ministry of Information and Broadcasting for the coverage of Aodha on 22nd of January. DD India correspondent Vishal Baristo spoke with India's Secretary of Information and Broadcasting, Apurva Chandra.
There's a lot of excitement about the Pran Pratishtha, both nationally and internationally, and I have with me Secretary INB, who's also holding the health department. Let's talk to him and find out. So what kind of arrangements have been made, especially the media center for the journalists, India and abroad?
Actually, after the experience of G20, we realized the importance of the media center, and we are setting up a media center at Ayodhya. Seeing the interest of the international, national and the regional media, we expect that a very large number of media persons are going to go there. But Ayodhya being a small place, it won't be easy for the media to arrange things for themselves. So that is why we are making a fully equipped media center where we will provide workstations, we will have internet Wi-Fi facility and other arrangements to facilitate the media.
So what about foreign journalists? How can they also take part in this?
The foreign journalists, any journalist who is in India, foreign journalist who is in India on a J visa, we'll accredit them and on the PIB registration portal and facilitate their entry also to Ayodhya.
Sir, since you are also holding the health department, so it's a big day and it's going to be quite crowded. So what kind of arrangements have been made for any eventuality?
In a situation like this, where a lot of people are expected to be there are two sort of eventualities which health department has to take care of. One is that there should be no spread of communicable diseases, and second is that in case of any emergency, the health facilities are fully geared up.
Since Doordarshan would be exclusively covering this event, what would you like to say that, and how other channels can benefit out of it?
I think Doordarshan during the G20 they set a benchmark by covering by providing 4K broadcast, and this time also I am told that Doordarshan is going to have 40 cameras apart from several other coverages at the Ram Ki Pedi and other places, and 4K coverage is going to be there. So, and clean feed Doordarshan is going to provide to the national, international, and all the media.
You heard the Secretary INB. He says that elaborate arrangements have been made for all media persons, and Doordarshan would be catering to other channels as well. With cameraman Rajesh Riki and Sunil in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo for DD India.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. The political party of Nawaz Sharif, who is the former Prime Minister of Pakistan and a leading candidate in the upcoming general elections, initiated its campaign on Monday. Maryam Nawaz Sharif's daughter and political successor kick-started the campaign with a rally in the Punjab province. Macau's Executive Council recently reviewed the plan for protection and management of Macau's historic centre. The plan outlines regulations for construction in the vicinity of heritage sites and establishes standards for the restoration of historical buildings. Veteran Hollywood actor Harrison Ford was honoured with Career Achievement Award from the hands of his Indiana Jones and Dial Destiny director James Mangold at 2024 Critics' Choice Awards on Monday. Denmark's new king, Frederik X, visited the Danish parliament on Monday as they performed their first official engagement in the new roles. The royals were welcomed by the members of parliament. The succession took place as Queen Margaret abdicated after 52 years on the throne. And a rare white whale was spotted approximately 5.6 miles south of Coral Island, a part of the Phuket province. The first living Omura whale was seen in the wild in 2015 earlier, but this is the first known sighting of what could be an albino of the species off the coast of Thailand.
Oh, you are so beautiful! Oh, hello!
You could hear the voices of the thrilled spectators. That's all for this edition of DD India Global. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.